So we'll start with some meditation. Find a comfortable position. So you can see I'm in the forest, not in the city. And regardless of whether we're here or out there, it's a really, they're both good places to meditate. And maybe every place on the planet is a good place to meditate. Um, so just get comfortable and check in on the body. We'll start with a bit of a body scan, starting at the top of the head, just feeling if there are any sensations there. Relaxing. See if you can feel your scalp relax. Noticing the muscles around your eyes, letting the eyes soften and the muscles relax. Relaxing your cheeks and your jaws. The back of your head, relaxing your neck, and your shoulders. Sometimes our shoulders take a lot of weight. Just letting them relax. Relaxing the muscles of your chest and your back. Your arms and hands, stomach, your abdomen, feeling your body resting on whatever surface you're on. Relaxing your legs and your feet. Breathing in and filling the whole body with breath energy. Settling in and unifying the body as you breathe out. Placing your attention on your meditation object with an attitude of kindness. And we have a sense, even if we're by ourselves, that we're here together in community. And how pleasant that is. Even when we're meditating entirely by ourselves, we know that there are many other people meditating in the world at the same time. Once I asked, excuse me, once I asked Ajahn Pasano if he thought there was value for me to meditate at the same time they'd be meditating at a Abhayagiri, because I was doing that. And he said yes. Just that knowing that the community is meditating. And in some way I'm joining in on that. And now we're quite fortunate we can be connected with several communities. We can visit, and we can visit virtually, can visit in person. And we can know that there is this practice ongoing. Not just meditation, but also developing the heart, the mind in all other ways, in all other actions. It's really beautiful. And there are people all over the world practicing, whether they have the same tradition or not, even the same religion or not. We can appreciate the goodness wherever we find it. Meditation on where we do find goodness in ourselves and in those around us, among our neighbors, in the world. And allow a real sense of mudita, of joy to arise. We can celebrate the kindness and compassion that we experience and that we see and hear about. We, we can rejoice in the virtuous actions, our own and others. We can rejoice in the development of wisdom. What we understand now that we didn't understand before, and how our life has changed in a good direction. And use those thoughts as a way of encouraging ourselves and encouraging others and opening the mind. Softening the heart. So instead of ringing a bell today, I'm just going to invite you to gradually come back from meditation into the space. So it feels like I've been away for a while. And after coming back from the Northwest, there's been a lot going on. And yesterday, I felt pretty ill. I'm okay though. Um, Feeling a lot better today. And this morning I thought, I have nothing to talk about. It's like, wow. And I had a very nice conversation this morning, and the topic there was how do we accept that people we're very close to might have very different views and opinions than we do? And it's certainly something that we all experience, I think, at some point. And so what I think might be useful to discuss is acceptance. And this can be a very important reflection, because we need to understand what we can accept and what's not. something we should accept, but something we should change in ourselves, and how we can, in a way that's kind, compassionate, caring, loving, voice our differences of opinion and why we feel the way we feel, or why we take the position we take. And I'm going to suggest that much of the time, human beings hold opinions and views that are really subject to change and can change because of there's more to the story, you might say, than the views that we take. A lot of times we hold fast to our views and opinions because of fear or because of identifying with them. Like I'm right. Um, and, that kind of clinging can really accentuate, can really create deeper divisions. Now, I know I've talked about this kind of thing before, but the last time, a few weeks ago, when I talked about it, I think it was really more how do we deal with the very, very deep divides among people? And this time I'm thinking more in terms of, just our discussions with each other and the way that we hold our own views and the way that we can open up to what others are thinking. There's a device that the Buddha used that I really like. Someone would come to him and they would maybe accuse him of holding a certain position. And there's a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya where the general Siha comes to the Buddha for the first time. He actually heard about the Buddha a while ago and he really wanted to go see him because of his reputation, and he had a teacher from another group. And he went to that teacher and he said, I've heard about, you know, Master Gotama. He's a Buddha. He's got this great reputation. I want to go see him. What do you think? And of course, this other teacher is a kind of a competitor, you might say, of the Buddha. Um, and of course, he discourages him. He's like, no, no, he teaches non-doing. In other words, he teaches, you know, something that's not the law of karma. And you don't want to go there. You don't want to, um, you know, corrupt your mind with this kind of idea or whatever. So this happens a couple of times. See how gets excited about this idea, keeps hearing about the Buddha, and finally he decides he's not going to ask his teacher about it. He's just going to go see the Buddha. So he says to the Buddha when he meets him, I've been told you teach non-doing, and you teach your disciples this, and you promote this. And the Buddha doesn't just contradict him. He says, well, there's a way that you can think of me as teaching about non-doing. And then it goes through a few other things that he says, there's a way that you can see me like this or like that. And then when he comes back to this non-doing, he says, I teach the non-doing of unwholesome actions by body, speech, and mind. It's like there's a way. And I've found that it's possible to use this when we're talking to each other. when we're listening to someone who thinks very differently than we do, first of all, try to understand what is the problem I have with this point of view? Is there any part of it that I can see value in? Or is there any way that I can recognize that, you know, uh, this is a way I could think of this view or my own view. So we have to examine our own views this way too. You know, is this really about the fundamentals of how to live harmoniously and happily and uphold goodness and um, try to work with or limit those things that are done by body, speech, and mind by human beings that are harmful. And oftentimes, seeing what we can agree on um, can really open up the conversation. And then, you know, what can we accept? I think it's important to talk about what we can accept. And maybe the acceptance can be a little more radical than we think. But one of the things I've been noticing is that on the broader stage these days, the ideas that I agree with also have a shadow behind them. And it's important to acknowledge the parts that get distorted because we want so much to promote a certain one side. And how the things that we might otherwise um, really be against or disagree with can have their side that actually is virtuous, trying to understand why this person takes this point of view. And I think really valuing the conversation. I mean, I've fallen into this myself where, you know, I just can't like accept or hear this other way of thinking. When actually it's more like, you know, if we really understand the underlying reasons, for example, the Buddha, you know, when he talked about virtue, morality, you know, it sounds pretty cut and dry, black and white. And yet it's more like, you know, let's look at the results. And if we see that the results can have this very negative um, kind of outcome, then we've got something that's valuable to point out, you know, rather than just having a view that we cling to. So when we're confronted with criticism, the first reaction a lot of times is to really put up a wall. And we want to be careful not to do that. You know, it takes practice. It takes practice to first and foremost accept what we're hearing or what we're seeing as actually the way someone's feeling or thinking. And then to recognize that we can find something more fundamental in it that actually is about what results will come from this kind of way of thinking. I'm wondering if any of you are thinking of examples. I'd like to hear it. Um, Dilemmas, maybe, that you're dealing with. Do you ever find yourself in a situation where there's conflict and you open up to seeing the other person's point of view, and it changes where you're at, where you stand. And
So this is a very fresh one, and it may not totally relate. Um, but after I was in a writing group yesterday, and I made a comment at the end when a woman offered her piece, and I said, "Oh," I said, I don't even remember what I said, but I said something like, "Oh, that really changes the tone." And then, and just meaning she like shifted it a way of looking at things. And then she sent me an email and she said, "Well, I feel very hurt," and launched into a thing about how I'd offended her. So, this was all at 9 o'clock at night. So I responded and basically said, I'm sorry, I didn't understand it to be a criticism or anything. And I felt like it was really her. She'd been triggered by something I said, which I didn't really feel was particularly harsh, although she. So anyway, I've been, and then she wrote back and said, "Yeah, well, I don't know what specifically, but in a more moderate tone." And I'm just thinking now, as I'm listening to you, we're just off on a trip to my daughter's, and I thought I'm just going to send her an email, and I'm going to say, "Well, let's just sit down and talk about it when I come back on Tuesday or Wednesday." And so I'm thinking that it certainly doesn't harm anything for me to understand more about what her point of view on this was and how I came across. So I'm not sure, as I say, how relevant that is, but it's something about that I'm just thinking of now, not holding to my view of I didn't do anything. So, I,
yeah, exactly. I think it's exactly what I was looking for in terms of specific examples, because this happens all the time, right? We misunderstand each other, or we understand each other, but we feel like something's really being left out, or there's something that we feel, or we say things and can be offensive to people, and just it's so important to be able to listen to that. I think that's exactly right. Especially when we're having strong feelings, to work with those feelings. I don't know, is this, the place where you live is so much centered around Buddhist practice. It seems like that would be a really excellent place to be able to have these conversations and try to understand each other better and let go of our strong positions.
yeah, I mean that's true to an extent. She's actually not a Buddhist, but she's a woman who tends to be on the extreme view end of things and challenging people. But you know, I mean, I've just resolved as I'm listening now that I'll talk to her and just listen. I mean, her reaction was very strong compared with anything I might have said, which was one short sentence. But
Mhm.
I don't have to go in there saying I didn't say anything and I didn't offend you and I didn't mean to. I just said, "Hey, what's up with this?" So, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, thank you for your
Yeah.
support on this.
And I also didn't mean to imply that people have to be Buddhist. It's
Oh,
just
I know.
it's
You're
like
right.
it's like that. It's like communication is that
Yes.
way. We gain by going deeper into what we're really trying to express, and what we're really and to be really open to hearing what people have to say and what they're thinking. And what's really behind it? Is it fear? Is it, um, the conditions that that person has been dealing with in their life?
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. I mean, there is this also on the broader scale, accepting the constant changing of everything in this world. There's an acceptance to see, there are reasons why things happen that we disagree with or dislike, and to really kind of appreciate, start to prepare ourselves for whatever might unfold, and be willing to be present with that, trying to understand it and let go of what we perceive to be our own requirements. And then where's the limit? Like someone recently talking about an abusive relationship that they're experiencing, and we do need to understand where things are harmful and how to pull away from that. It's also part of it. So I would say this discussion, I hope it's more of a discussion, because as far as a Dhamma talk goes, I'm not feeling like it's so clear. But maybe that's part of the lesson. you know, how do we make this clearer? How do we operate in the world in those scary places where we feel disenfranchised or misunderstood, or at real odds with others? Oh, Jane, did you mean to want to share something?
I'm not sure why my normal raise hand, I'm not.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Uh, yes. So, now I'm wondering, I was thinking of avoiding any further discussion with my son about there's a couple of issues that we see differently that are going on in the world. And the particular, the issues are important to me. And so I was thinking, I'm going to avoid, uh, which would be easy. He's not one to push his point of view. Um, but now I'm thinking, if it were to come up again, or that, you know, maybe I'll get curious. This is helping me what you were saying, and it'll be extremely hard. I'll have to meditate a lot beforehand, but and maybe just get curious about his thinking, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so the thing with my son and I, he's 26, and I feel like my challenge was brought to me. My Buddhist work was really, the ante was really upped when he was born. Um, I mean, he's always been very, very different from his parents, and he has like he said to me when we had dinner a few weeks ago, and he said, "Well, Mom, your way of I feel that your way of looking for the reasons behind everything," and he meant, in society, is it just doesn't translate well into laws and these types of things. And in hindsight, I wish I would have probably, part of me wants to say, no, you know what, no four-letter word. I don't really, I'm glad it doesn't translate into laws, but he's really, he's just coming from such a different place his whole life. Thankfully, I think we poured enough love into him that he's the sweetest, kindest in relationships, human, but he's always been like sort of a looking at like protector of the world. I mean, even when I'll just briefly say when he was 6, I was at the park with him, and there was a child being pretty bullied by another child, and my son saw like a broomstick or some kind of thing, and he grabbed it and he was turned it upside down and was chasing the bully like this. And my then husband and I took him home and tried to explain nonviolent action, And he literally got very upset and said, you guys are acting like Buddhas. I'm the protector of the park. Don't you know that? And so, so it's been quite a challenge. And he's, it's very, now though I'm feeling like very challenged. So I really appreciate the topic, and I can't change someone. I can't change him. I want to just wave a magic wand and that he sees things the way I do. And I don't even really know if I'd want that, but anyway, I just thought I'd put all this out there. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think more conversation could be really good. But how we maintain our calm and our caring and our willingness to disagree and recognize that a lot of the issues don't really rest so much in fundamental, laws of Dhamma, but they're more in how we approach things. And, to recognize that, there's a certain need for structure, discipline, rules in a society that we need to follow. And then there's also a need for self-expression and for, you know, um, compassion, and of course, and there's the more liberal way, the more conservative or stringent way, and is there value in both? Do they balance each other, or are they taken to extremes where there's really harm done either way? These are just questions to explore. And can we have conversation instead of arguments? Go ahead, Jean.
No, thank you. This is so helpful. I actually see a seed of possibility that I could have a calm, curious conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Holly?
I've been thinking about the friends I have, several friends I have that take me to really different places around these different views. And it's interesting. So I have one friend, Susan, who's as much into her contemplative consideration of the real nature of things from her Christian viewpoint as I am in my Buddhist viewpoint. And when we occasionally approach topics of national or world politics, she's fairly different than I, and kind of parrots her husband's, always says what my husband says. But we have such a knowledge that we have I have a trust or a fondness for the shared way we move in the world that I just don't worry about it. And then I had another friend, and I mentioned her before years ago, that when our current president was president before, just went way mega. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't continue the friendship. The difference was that she had some anger and vengeance, and to me, in my perspective, and hate for certain kinds of people that was so in contradiction to my own ethics that I didn't
Yeah.
want to be around it anymore. So I ended the friendship.
Mhm.
I have a third friend, um, Connie, and as we were driving through the gorge the other day, there's all these windmills, and we started a little rant on windmills, wind turbines, and she voted for Trump, but now she's not real happy with the situation. But uh, we had the same view on the windmills, which was so interesting. They're highly supported by green energy, desirous of green energy, but they take more. We know, living here in the gorge, they take more energy to maintain than they put out.
Mm.
And they're all built from materials not made in the US and shipped here via fossil fuels. And it's just a real complex algorithm.
Mm.
And we just had like, I went, wow, I feel the same way as Connie. So there's like at least three, different ways that there are different views,
Mhm.
but sometimes to me, if the underlying ethics and morality and loving kindness, Brahma Viharas, is present in that person with the different views, then I find that I either just let it be, drop it, or I go, oh, okay, we have that in common, and then I let go of the rest because I'm more interested in how the person moves in the world as a person than their political views, I guess. So, anyway, I found it interesting as I was listening to you to consider those three friends.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good illustration, I think, of what I was kind of trying to get at. There needs to be an underlying understanding of Dhamma, which can be true for anyone, anywhere. Um, and sometimes we do have to step away when that is so clouded over with anger, resentment, um, violence in speech or action, etc. And even then, maybe the answer isn't stepping away, but we have to know that in the situation. Yeah, thank you. Steve?
Yeah, well, when you first mentioned it, I thought of the big strong disagreements that I just said no way dealing with those. Just walk away. Um, but then that's kind of one extreme, and the other extreme are pretty easy ones where I don't really have much investment in, where
Mm.
I've got a way that I think something could be done, and somebody else says something else, and I can say, okay, I see the value in yours, and just change immediately. And then in the middle of those are some more personal issues where I've got some attachment to my way of doing it or my way of seeing it, and but not the real strong ones, but it's some kind of uh, interaction with my wife or something where I've got some attachment or I'm feeling attacked by something, and uh, I I notice there's a delay between, well, kind of like what you talked about, stepping away from it. If I if I give it a little bit of time, I can't immediately let go of the self that's involved in that, but I can. Uh, I think with over time, it's become easier to the delay between when the situation arises and when I can let go of it is shortening. I, I'm not quite to doing it immediately yet, but
Yeah,
anyway, those kind of
yeah,
saw those three um, ways of looking at it.
yeah, that's good. And I think part of the practice and part of seeing our development in the practice is like how quickly can I let go?
Hmm.
You know, another idea I had about talking this morning was about working with disappointment
Hmm.
and, like how quickly can we let go when it's something we really can't change.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, this is a useful reflection. And the fact that we can step away and pretty soon, come back to it, that's a really good sign, I think. It's a lot of progress already, Yeah.
Yeah. You, it's also a little easier on me because it goes away sooner. I'm
Oh,
not I'm not walking around with this lump of resentment or anything.
yeah. 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 And the more we reflect on the nature of um, the world and how everything's constantly changing, when we get used to that fact, then we learn to let go more easily too, because we can, instead of having expectations of things being the way we want them to be, we can expect that when they are the way we want them to be, they're going to change, and when they're not the way we want them to be, they're going to change. So it makes it a little bit easier to not be so tightly grasping. Thank you. Shane?
Good morning, Aya. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling a lot better today.
Well,
It's
thank
nice
you.
to see you.
Good to see
I
you
have
too.
I have a question and I have a comment. I think I'll start with a comment first. When me and my mother, we we she doesn't like me being Buddhist. She's very Christian. She's very set in her opinions and views on that being the right way to practice spirituality. And when I was identifying as Sarah, she really didn't like that. She had her opinion about that, and we had a lot of heated discussions about why I am the way I am, and why I practice what I practice, and I tried to get her to understand like view of it, but she was closed off. She wasn't hearing
Mhm.
any of it. And there was even a point in time where, her and I didn't talk just because of the difference. But the common denominator between her and I is that we loved each other. And I sat there and I thought about it for, reflected on like, why is she behaving like this? I just realized that she's just being a mom and she wants what's best for me. And that really eats a lot of the tension between her and I. Um, Something I've always kind of well, not always, but I like to think about is like when people have a difference of opinion, that is, it doesn't have anything to do with me, not attacking me. Like if I'm feeling disturbed about whatever it is that they're saying, then there's something about me that I need to take a look at because that's their opinion. They're almost like holding up a mirror and
Yeah.
and showing me something about myself that is really kind of unacceptable. So I guess my question is that something I've thought about in the past and kind of brought it up is uh, what is there a difference between an opinion and a view?
Mm.
And I'm not sure about that one yet.
Mhm. Yeah.
And if it's okay, there's something by a guy named Dr. Paul that he wrote that I'd like to share in the chat if it's okay. It's not, you know, controversial. It's kind of goes along with kind of what we're saying,
Okay.
and it really helped me out a lot. Something I
Okay.
try to keep in mind when it comes to acceptance.
Yeah. I won't look at it now, but you can go ahead and put it there and we'll see what we think. The difference between opinions and views. Yeah. I don't think I have a clear way of saying there's a distinction there. Opinion feels more arbitrary, I guess, but I don't think that necessarily holds. Um, and getting into the semantics maybe isn't as useful as trying to understand what's the difference between right view and wrong view, whether we think of it as opinion or not. I think that's really, right view, seeing the insubstantiality of conventional reality is really at the base of it, and understanding the results of actions in this world, those kinds of things. So, when we have views or opinions, regardless of which we call it, that go in direct opposition to that, then we're going to run into trouble, because our actions and our speech do matter. And when we cling to our views and opinions, and then it's really painful and disruptive. But when we actually promote goodness and we promote responsibility, virtue in a way that's balanced and in alignment with the Dhamma, that's going to have good results, even if people don't agree with us. So I think that's where we want to put the attention. Is there a way that my holding on to something, is it really for the benefit of furthering the Dhamma, or is this some opinion that I need to look more deeply at and see if there are the other sides of it are also have value.
Thank you, Ayya.
Yeah, thank you, Shane. Ling?
Thank you, Ayya. And I'm also feeling very happy to see you and welcome back. And I hope you get really fully recovered well soon. My son is talking with his dad now, so I just send my comments, opinion in the chats. I really appreciate what Shane just talked about, and also what you just said is really refresh for what just happened to me today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Ling. I'll be checking the chat after we finish. I think. Suzanne?
Thank you, and thank you for the comments. This discussion is very rich. Okay, this is about protests.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated what you said about the shadow side, because sometimes there's like an awareness of protests. I don't go to them, by the way. I'm on a cane. And then I think, well, if I wasn't on a cane, because I can't run, would I go anyway? And I don't think I would, because it seems like, just from what I see in the media, or like my siblings will send me photos of protest signs, and it seems violent to me. So that, even though politically I feel like I'm aligned with, they're like my best friends. But I've had friends say, "Oh, do you want to go to the protests with me?" No, no, thanks. But I hope you have fun. I don't know what to say. Hope you have a good time. Hope you enjoy it. And then recently, a friend was here. She refers to herself as a wannabe Buddhist, and she said, "I really appreciate your view of how you see Trump as a human being." And I said, "Well, that's to me how I view him." And so anyway, the question is something about like the tension of creating this self that, like, oh no, maybe I should be going to protests, or it feels like teams, kind of like taking sides.
Yeah.
And so there is like some tension around that, and then feeling like, well, what's my identity? Don't I want to go to a protest? And so what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like speaking out against things that are really harsh, unjust, and unfair and these are all areas of needed, we need to really understand that what we consider to be fair can change too, but they're the showing up in favor of peace and the respect for human beings, the respect for life, those kinds of things. I feel like, the more people show up and really exude, peacefulness and kindness and really and values that accord with virtue. I think this is helpful for people to see and to understand. And I think it's very important to not fall into hatred and ridicule of people, but to recognize that human beings have some ideas and some actions that are harmful, and we can call that out and, you know, stand firm in the light of kindness, compassion, and equanimity. So that's what I would say. I know some of the bhikkhunis that we are friends with have attended the area where there's a demonstration, and they're off in a park next nearby, and they're available to talk with people and answer questions, and it's a different way of showing up. So you could think about that. And yeah, it is important to remember that it's a trait or a kind of a way that human beings deal with their fear and animosity, is to make someone else out to be, dehumanize others. I think that's one of the main psychological weapons in war. And whenever that happens, there's this incredible loss, I think, for everyone. And so we want to really be careful around that. And yet the actions that people take also should be seen for the results that they have, and to be as clear as we can be about that. What do you think, Suzanne?
That's helpful. And what do you have to say about this fear I have of like wanting to grasp onto some identity?
Yeah,
It sounds like
self
view.
Yeah, we have to let go of all that grasping onto identity.
But I mean, I have a Peace Talks radio show, but I mean, I believe in peace, but isn't that an identity too, of peace?
Yeah, and don't let it become an identity.
Okay.
See if we can operate, live our lives from Dhamma rather than this personality view, and that takes some real shift. But we practice it, even if we're not there fully with the insight that breaks it away. We want to recognize when we are showing up as somebody, as something. When we become something, there's going to be suffering. And so, understanding the importance of peace, and encouraging peace doesn't mean we have to, I'm the peaceful one.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Moffat? And
Actually, we're together. I'm Betsy.
hi, Betsy.
Retreat.
And Moffat. Yeah.
I appreciate this conversation because something I struggle is with my opinion, and I'm focusing on trying to improve right speech. And I very much agree with pretty much everything Suzanne said about the protests and what you said about the shadow part of people's opinions. But I find one person's strong opinions, which I'm trying to not attach to, but when I point out those shadows in people's views, I get a very angry response and
Yeah.
closed down response. So I'm wondering, so right now, what I'm attempting is not to voice my opinion. So, um, at least until I can be clear, I have no attachment to it. Uh, and more larger, I'm like, what difference does it make what my opinion is? I'm not going to change anybody's view. Um, because most people aren't willing to engage in a conversation. They have their view and they state their view and doesn't seem to get beyond that.
Right.
So I'm wondering if there's value in what I'm thinking of to take me along the path for a right view is just not to voice my opinion, which is very difficult for me. um,
Yeah.
I've been semi-successful. So is that a good way to go to proceed? Um,
I think the key here is knowing when people are open to hearing. Um, I mean, a lot of times, the way we think of it is having the permission to tell someone that you think that, you have a different view, or um, the being in opposition of someone else's view. If they're not wanting to engage in conversation, telling them is probably going to lead to, an angry response. But if there's a way to, like I said, in some ways, what can you appreciate about their position? Or even just acknowledging that you hear them and this is what you hear them say, maybe asking a question about it, trying to understand what's behind it. And if they're open, like, would you like to hear my opinion? Just kind of knocking before entering, you might say, could help. Um, and and taking action and behaving according to our own views is important, really according to Dhamma, not some opinion or that we have, and then, really maybe just starting with pointing out something um, that maybe they could agree with around compassion or kindness or, you know, something that doesn't just kind of come across as, I don't agree with you, I think you're wrong. That's going to probably not meet with very open response.
yeah, I agree with that. I try not to do it that way, but who knows? Sometimes when you say things, comes out stronger than you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I have that sometimes. You don't even know how much energy is behind it until it comes out of your mouth. It's like, whoa, something to look at there. Yeah.
And
Anyway,
is value not even speaking, like trying for the not self? Is there value in just saying,
yeah.
not saying? And I'm always trying to remind myself that everything is impermanent and there's been cycles
Yeah.
throughout time. And right now, maybe things look terrible, but it's looked terrible in the past, not try to like make it into a dire situation, like it's the end of times or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think there is value in knowing when the right time is to just not say anything. Um, and when I try to look at the Buddha as an example, he didn't go out to try to change what people were doing. They came to him. He changed things in his own domain and with his own sangha. was pretty radical, and erasing class and caste distinctions and any kind of ideas of being superior or inferior, and that kind of thing. And he wasn't, we're not allowed to like proselytize, go out on a street corner and start telling people what Buddhism is or what we think. We have to be asked. And I think that's a reasonable standard to consider. Is this something people want to know? Are they interested in knowing? I mean, Ajahn Sumedho talked about first coming to England, and they were um, they had bought the property where Chithurst Mansion was. It was super dilapidated old mansion, and the people in the neighborhood were really against having a Buddhist monastery there, and because they, I don't know, probably think it's a cult and whatever, and that they were being accused of what, they're going to try to convert people to Buddhism. And Ajahn Sumedho's like, I'm not trying to convert anyone to Buddhism. We're just offering this to those who want to know. Very different attitude. And so look for those opportunities when, or be available when people want to know what you think. And if they don't want to know what you think, but you care about them and you see that what they're thinking or what they're saying is causing them harm, at least you can say, I'm worried, or I'm concerned that this way of thinking about things will lead to more pain and suffering as you go along. Maybe there's more to understand about the situation, something like that. Just something very genuine, not trying to get people to do something.
Thank you. I appreciate your words.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
I wanted to slip in a quick question too.
This is Moffat now.
Oh, okay, Moffat. Yeah.
This is maybe a simple example is that related to my relationship with my mother. There's a dynamic where she's 83 and sort of points out things like I can't, how do you turn the faucet to hot if it's a different kind of faucet, or I can't buy this on Amazon. I took a picture of it. Can you buy it for me? And no, I think it's better that you do it, or I can't donate on this because I'll probably mess it up. Like a lot of focus on things that she used to be able to do and can't do now. And of course, as her daughter, I'm like wanting her to not lose confidence on things. And I think we get into the dynamic where I'm not listening because I like what I just thought through is that usually when she says, I can't turn the faucet to hot, like 2 days ago, I said, I really think you should be able to figure it out. Like, and kind of like that, like not super, kind of a little snarky. And there's other sort of examples where I feel like I don't want to coddle her because she's uh I don't it makes me feel like I want her to have as full a life as she can and not give in to the weaknesses, and that's where it's coming from. But in listening to the points that you're making, it feels like, well, she really, really wants to be heard that she is struggling with aging or just affected by aging. Like it's interesting to her to see this, and it's a big part of, her life right now. And I do not want to listen because I don't want it to happen, and I don't want her. In my mind, I'm letting her off the hook if I'm even just listening to the hardship of losing those abilities. And I just realized that that's sort of why I don't want to do it. I feel like I want to not let her off the hook. Like she's, she's like the same as me at my age. She was a go-getter. She's, making things happen, really engaged, and to see her fade in those abilities and get fearful because of her, it's a natural, I can understand, and that's what's going to happen to me too. And I think that it's, my reaction is more about me than making her do things probably. And so that's just my example. And I appreciate the encouragement to just, just listen. She wants to be heard, and she has valid points that are extremely affecting her life, and why I can't have any sympathy for that or not demonstrate tolerance even for it. Barely demonstrate tolerance is it's going to make it worse. We're going to keep talking about these things because I'm still not hearing her, or not. She doesn't think I'm hearing her, and yeah. So thank
Yeah.
you for bringing that up.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to comment, any comments from that.
Sure.
I can really understand. I mean, when my mom was starting to lose her capabilities in those ways, and also not remembering things, and I would say, "Oh yeah, you remember da 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 da," da," and I was trying to get her to remember or get her to do things, and I realized that it's that kind of um, you've seen this person all your life be really capable,
Yeah.
like you're saying, and now it's not that way. And you want them, and I hear exactly what you're saying. You want her to continue to try because that's going to keep her going longer, it feels like. But I had to accept that, oh, she really can't remember. And I need to have this compassion for that. And it's so true what you're saying is this examination of how much of this is about me and what is it really that I can do to be there to support her as these changes occur, because this is natural. And like you said, we're facing our own also inevitable demise. And it's like our inevitable deterioration, which is true. It's the way things are. And to be willing, as you're saying, to really take that in and then, as much as possible, make ourselves supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a really common, it's a difficult
I think I
transition.
hear her and not be snarky, and then to just say how hard it is. So there's
Yeah.
it's I
Yeah.
have that mother-daughter like reaction of just like I'm easily irritated by her in ways that I'm not irritated by other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And the irritation is not, we want things to be different than they are.
Yeah.
And it's understandable that we want them to be different than they are. And it's the opposite end of life. And when I was raising kids and when they're small, then you every day you're kind of learning now what they can do and how to protect them. Like they first you can put them on a bed and they won't roll off the bed, but then comes the day when they're rolling and you can't leave them on the bed without some kind of barriers around them, and it goes on like that. And then on the other end of life, it's like, oh, now she can't really walk without a walker. She can't really, um, and when it gets closer to the end, she can't really shower on her own. There's going to be a lot more that's going to happen with her, and being able to just notice, like, okay, where is she at now? What can I do to help support her, both in being able to do as much as she can for herself and in stepping in when she really can't do it, and the whole thing in this place from selflessness. It's a very good practice. It's a beautiful, very hard Dhamma practice. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Jean?
Yeah, this is just such a beautiful discussion. I really, really appreciate it. The fluidity of it and how there's a focused topic, but so many other things are coming into it and answering questions inadvertently for me regarding Theravada Buddhism. As I mentioned earlier when we were talking that I've come from uh, first Tibetan and then Mahayana, part of Mahayana. But I'm relatively new, under 2 years, to Theravada, and one of the questions that I feel hasn't really been answered, but maybe there is no solid answer, which is fine, is it's not really engaged. Buddhism, obviously, but yet maybe it is in its own way. And I think it was you in a talk that mentioned this Cambodian monk that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mahagosananda.
yes. But I think he was in a different tradition and then he went into the Thai forest. No, he was in Thai forest the whole.
Well, he was a Theravada monk, Cambodian tradition, and did some training and study in India, and then went to Thailand, and he was in a monastery in Thailand. But as Theravada monks and Theravada monastics, they all share so much commonality. I don't know that he really had to adopt a different specific tradition, but yeah, just this really amazing person. Um,
Yeah, I mean, that was a protest, obviously, what he did when he walked, but it wasn't maybe what we think of traditionally as a protest. It kind of reminds me of something Thich Nhat Hanh said, because obviously he went on many Vietnam War protests. He encouraged Martin Luther King to do that too, which he did. But he said in one of his Dharma talks that anytime he's thinking of going on a protest, he calls the people that talks to the people that are planning it, and he wants to know. I forgot how he put it, but in his poetic way, something like, can I walk peacefully in this protest? Is this a peaceful walking
mhm.
in the protest?
Yeah.
So, and then I just wanted to say that I was thinking of Ajahn Sucitto and something he said in regard to, even though I didn't get curious about what's behind my son's way of thinking, I remember because Ajahn Sucitto said this wonderful thing. It was just this so simple phrase: "Don't think your way through life, feel your way through life." And when Nolan, my son, was mentioning a couple of things calmly, but still, I was thinking, and I think I did say one thing at first. I said like, I feel like you're losing compassion, and then but then we kept talking calmly, and then he said one other thing, and then I was something about the sentence he thinks shoplifters should get because everything at CVS is locked up now. But anyway, and I've worked in prisons as a volunteer and this type of, and it's very important, that work to me. But anyway, but I just went, like, I just felt my body and my being just went like that, like, but not intentionally to show him something. It was just like a, oh, and like I didn't say, anyway, that's when, as I told you, he just went, "Oh, Mom, come here," and then he like gave me a big hug. So when I felt my way through in that moment, rather than thinking, and well, how can you say that? And this is what it should be. And it elicited actually the greatest goodness in him, which is so obvious. all the time. He's so loving. But still, I don't know if this, yeah. So I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. I mean, just in the last few minutes here, I'll just share an example of where this is coming from for me. I mean, I have quite a few family members back in the Midwest and in the, northern Illinois and Indiana who have very different views from mine. There are a couple of them there who think a lot the way I do. But, one of my cousins said to me a few years ago, yeah, somebody's got to do something about the gangs. Somebody's got to do something about the violence here. And in my world, I don't have much contact with that kind of violence or gang activity. And then, we're hearing, this is just south of Chicago, and, we're hearing all about what's going on in Chicago in the news. And I recently read an article in the Atlantic about the danger of minimizing the problem with violence in Chicago. And so, from this article, really looking at, kind of some of the facts around the high homicide rate and different things in Chicago, even though it's gotten better, you can really appreciate that some of the people who live there or live near there are feeling. What she said was, yeah, somebody's got to do something about this. And I think she doesn't like, I'm guessing that these days she doesn't like how it's happening. But it's like when we hold a view very strongly and we don't see more of the dimensions of it, then we fall into this possible difficulty of recognizing that the people who have a different view also have a point. Can we continue to discuss about ways of helping situations and really understanding where people are coming from and seeing that it's not so black and white in this world? We can see that the Dhamma is the way things work. When we're harsh, when we're mean, when we're cruel, there's going to be negative results. If we're kind, if we're compassionate, there's going to be positive results. But we're living in a world where there also needs to be support for limiting the cruelty of others. And, it's like, how do you go about that? There's never going to be a solid, clear, 100% perfect solution. That's not how this world works. Everything's got a downside to it. Everything's got a kind of repercussions. And so it has felt to me throughout my life that it's helpful to have sort of conservative views and liberal views working together to balance each other. And it feels like we've lost that balancing. And we need to somehow promote that balancing on a conventional level with an underlayment of really solid, positive, wholesome human values. Dhamma. That's what I think. So when I went back to visit my family, when my cousin died, now it's a couple years ago already, of course, they're Christian and they probably believe that what I'm doing is wrong, but they didn't say a word about that. They're loving and caring, and it feels very much like there is a way to bridge some of these gaps that we're experiencing.